Hey, I'm Colby Keller, porn star, artist, and sex blogger. Get in bed with me.
Hey there, Manhunters! It's Colby Keller, your resident sexpert. Today, we have a very special guest, a very handsome guest, who's also a hero of sorts, fighting a very pernicious disease. His name is Zachary Barnett. Welcome, Zachary. How are you?
What's up, guys? Hi, Colby. How's it going?
So tell me, Zachary, what is this pernicious disease I speak of?
We're talking about HIV and AIDS. I'm the founder of a nonprofit called the Abzyme Research Foundation.
Okay.
We're helping one university-based scientist test out a new vaccine for AIDS in a human clinical trial.
Now, what makes this vaccine different than others?
A couple things. It's the first vaccine ever created that's meant to induce something called an Abzyme.
Okay.
It's a new kind of antibody that instead of just binding to a site in the body, it will bind and break. So it's a new class of vaccine that we hope will be very effective. And what's exciting about it is we're testing it as a therapeutic, which means that we're aiming to give this to people who are already HIV positive. And hopefully, if it works like it has in animal tests, this will be an alternative to daily medication. So we could teach your body how to permanently defend itself if you were HIV positive.
Oh, really? So instead of taking medication every day, you would take this vaccine once a year, one time?
This is gonna have to wait for trials. What we're thinking is there's some great examples out there already of vaccines that help people suppress infections. The most recent one that's come out is for shingles. So shingles is caused by the chickenpox virus. Once you get chickenpox, it's in your system forever. And shingles is a late in life expression of chickenpox. And so the vaccine for shingles doesn't cure you of shingles, but it does prevent the expression of shingles. So we're trying to do the same thing. We think that if we're able to create memory cells that can produce Abzymes against HIV, you may only need to get the vaccine twice, 2 consecutive injections. And maybe then, your body has enough constant interaction with HIV that the reservoir of those cells is maintained naturally. So we're going to have to wait for tests, but hopefully in a best case scenario, you just have to take it twice.
And so it's therapeutic for people who are already HIV positive, correct?
Yes, that's the first way we're going to test it. If it works like that, we'll try it as a preventative.
Okay.
But as you may know, those trials are much more difficult to produce.
Okay.
And a little bit more ethically challenging. To test a preventative vaccine for efficacy, for effectiveness, you need to have a partial group of your population become infected. So that's, with all the great prevention materials we have out there today, that's increasingly difficult to kind of wrap your head around.
Right, yeah. And so tell me more about this Abzyme. It's a part
Okay,
of
so,
the HIV virus.
So I found out about this through a CBS news story, and potentially we could link it maybe in the blog post. But I was infected by a boyfriend in 2008, and after that I was diagnosed as an elite controller. So I'm somebody who can naturally suppress the virus without any medication.
Oh, really?
So I'm undetectable without any meds, and my T cells are very high. My CD4 is very high. So naturally, I'm able to suppress the infection. So I started looking for a way to kind of give back and pay it forward. And I found this guy's work very interesting, and it's based off a theory that a guy named Linus Pauling had. Linus Pauling was the only person to ever win Nobel Prizes in 2 different categories. And in science, in chemistry, he's kind of the grandfather of the covalent bond. So he had this theory that the body should be able to produce an antibody that's site-specific, but instead of binding to it, it would break it. And the main researcher I work with, his name is Dr. Sudhir Paul, found this presence of this antibody in lupus patients who were HIV positive in 1988. And somehow, this was before drugs, as you know. 1988, everyone was kind of dropping like flies. And these guys had stabilized somehow. So that they knew something was going on within these patient populations, so they started investigating, and they found the presence of these antibodies that work like enzymes, and now they've created a vaccine which they think induces that in the body. So we know the body can produce it, but no one's been able to trigger it so far.
I see.
So we're working with a new trigger.
So the idea is this vaccine will trigger that enzyme.
Yeah. So we're trying to teach
Okay.
the body. We're trying to push the body into producing this. If you may know people who have lupus. Lupus causes the immune system in the body to go nuts. You start producing antibodies to things you don't need antibodies for, and it just causes this huge overreaction.
Right.
So we're trying to specifically ignite that one reaction we know the body can make to turn that against HIV.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're not diagnosed with lupus as well.
No, I participate in a lot of tests. I was up at Harvard 4 weeks ago, and they took almost a liter of my blood. So I participate in other studies, but a lot of people think that there's a small percentage of Northern Europeans that are naturally kind of immune or partially immune. So my receptor for HIV may be severely mutated, so it can enter, but it just takes it a fucking long time. And in that time, my body's been able to produce a pretty good antibody. So I'm naturally able to kind of suppress it naturally. So I do participate in other studies, but I don't think it's not the lupus connection for me.
Right. Now, I've read, and I don't know if this is true or not, that's related, they think, to a history of the plague, people surviving the plague.
Yeah,
Okay.
bubonic plague. So my mom is Irish, and my dad comes from Russian, Eastern European, Jewish descent. So they both have that kind of profile.
Okay.
So they do track it to that. And, you look at the Berlin patient. Do you know this guy, Timothy Brown?
No, I hate to interrupt, Zachary, but we've reached our time limit today. Please come back next week for more from our special guest and handsome fellow, Zachary Barnett of A Little Crush. Bye, boys.